The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast long shadows across the crystalline battlefield where two mighty fleets faced each other in the silence of space. Admiral HFY of the Zephyrian Empire watched from his command ship as enemy vessels moved in perfect formation 3,000 kilometers away. The Nexari fleet looked beautiful against the backdrop of stars, their silver hulls gleaming like precious jewels. This was the 47th honorable conflict between their species, and HFY knew exactly how it would unfold. The rules were clear, written in the great book of civilized warfare that every military officer in the galaxy had memorized. Each side would deploy exactly 100 ships. They would fight for precisely 6 hours each day, with mandatory rest periods for reflection. No more than 50 casualties were permitted per side during the entire conflict, which would last exactly 90 days unless resolved sooner through negotiation. Marshal Cretan of the Nexari observed the same scene from his flagship, the elegant destroyer. His tactical display showed every Zephyrian ship marked with threat assessments and optimal engagement ranges. Like all conflicts in the Galactic Confederation, this dispute over mining rights would be settled through careful, measured combat that demonstrated military skill without causing unnecessary destruction. "Begin the morning engagement sequence," Cretan commanded. His officers acknowledged with polite bows, then sent the traditional challenge message to the enemy fleet. HFY received the formal declaration and responded appropriately. "We accept your challenge with honor. May the most skilled commander prevail." Both fleets began their ritual dance, moving into the prescribed battle formations that had been refined over centuries of civilized warfare. The first exchange of fire came exactly at the designated time. Bright energy beams lanced across space, striking predetermined targets on both sides. The Zephyrian ship Crystal Wing took a hit to its secondary engine, causing minor damage that would require 3 days to repair. In response, they disabled the communications array on the Nexari vessel Swift Current. This was warfare, as the galaxy understood it. Precise, controlled, and ultimately harmless to the greater stability of both civilizations. The casualties were always volunteers who accepted the honor of dying for their people. The damaged ships would be repaired or replaced according to strict guidelines. Even the mining rights they fought over would eventually be shared between both species once the conflict concluded. Captain Sora of the Terran Defense Force watched the battle through long-range sensors from her position aboard the human battleship, Indomitable Will. She had been studying galactic warfare for 6 months since humanity first made contact with the Confederation, and she still could not understand what she was seeing. "Admiral Taiwan," she said, turning to the graying man who commanded their ship. "They are barely fighting at all. Look at these casualty reports. In 6 weeks of conflict, they have lost fewer people than we lost in a single day during the Mars Colony Rebellion." Taiwan nodded grimly. He had fought in 12 different wars during his career, from the asteroid belt conflicts to the brutal campaign against the AI uprising on Europa. This galactic warfare looked more like an elaborate training exercise than actual combat. "Their entire approach is wrong," he replied. "They fight to follow rules, not to win. They care more about looking honorable than achieving their objectives." The Indomitable Will was humanity's first deep space battleship, built specifically for contact with alien civilizations. At 15 kilometers long, it dwarfed most space stations humanity had ever constructed. Its hull was scarred from weapons testing and equipped with systems that no alien species had ever imagined. Most importantly, It carried 3,000 human soldiers who understood warfare in ways the galaxy had forgotten. Dr. Yunbi, the ship's cultural advisor, joined them on the bridge. She had spent her career studying human military history, from ancient battles with spears and shields to the devastating space conflicts of the previous century. "I have been analyzing their tactics," she said. "These aliens have never experienced total war. They do not understand what it means to fight for survival." The communication system activated, and Ambassador Kyung-ho appeared on the main screen. He was currently stationed on the Confederation capital world, attempting to negotiate humanity's entry into galactic society. "Admiral, I have received approval for our mediation offer. Both the Zephyrians and Nexari have agreed to allow human observers during their conflict." Tae-wan smiled without humor. "Observers? We requested permission to mediate the conflict, not just watch it. They believe humans are too primitive to understand civilized warfare," Kyung-ho replied. "Marshal Cretan specifically mentioned that our species only recently discovered nuclear fusion. They think we might learn something by observing proper military conduct." Lieutenant Wee Jin at the communications station looked up from his console. "Sir, we are receiving the official rules of honorable engagement. The file is quite large." "How large?" Sora asked. 3,000 pages, Captain. It covers everything, from acceptable target selection to mandatory meditation periods between battles." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. 3,000 pages of rules for something that should be simple. Defeat your enemy and achieve your objectives. "Commander." In-ho, the ship's weapons officer, shook his head in disbelief. "They have rules for which parts of enemy ships you are allowed to shoot. They have mandatory timeouts, so both sides can think about the futility of violence. They even have casualty quotas." "Show me their current engagement," Tae-wan ordered. The main screen displayed the ongoing battle. Both fleets moved in slow, predictable patterns. When a ship was damaged, it politely withdrew from combat to avoid exceeding the acceptable casualty limits. Enemy vessels that lost their weapon systems were ignored rather than destroyed. The entire engagement looked like a carefully choreographed performance. "This is not war," Tae-wan said quietly. "This is theater." Dr. Yunbi pulled up historical data on her tablet. "Our records show that humanity has fought over 15,000 major conflicts in the past 5,000 years. We have experienced total war, genocidal campaigns, and conflicts that consumed entire continents. These aliens appear to have avoided such experiences." "That explains their approach," Sora observed. "They have never faced an enemy that wanted to completely destroy them. They have never fought for the survival of their species or their way of life." The tactical display showed both fleets withdrawing for the daily reflection period, a mandatory 2-hour break designed to prevent excessive aggression. Tae-wan watched alien commanders carefully separate their forces and begin broadcasting philosophical messages about the nature of conflict. "Admiral," Wee Jin reported, "we are receiving a transmission from Marshal Cretan. He is offering to provide us with educational materials about proper warfare." "Educational materials," Tae-wan repeated. "Put him through." The alien commander appeared on screen, his insectoid features arranged in what humans had learned was a polite expression. "Greetings, primitive humans. We understand your species is new to interstellar conflict. We have prepared instructional videos that will help you understand how civilized beings conduct warfare." "We appreciate your offer," Tae-wan replied carefully. However, we would prefer to demonstrate our own approach to conflict resolution. Cretan's antenna twitched in amusement. Your species has no experience with space warfare. Perhaps you should observe for several months before attempting to participate. We have extensive experience with warfare, Marshal, just not this kind. What other kind could there be? Cretan asked genuinely. War is war. There are proper methods and improper methods. The Confederation has perfected the art of civilized conflict over 3 centuries. Taiwan looked around his bridge at officers who had fought in battles where the very existence of human civilization hung in the balance. Marshal, we would like to request permission for a demonstration of human peacekeeping methods. A demonstration? Cretan seemed intrigued. Very well. But you must follow the rules of honorable engagement. We cannot allow primitive tactics to contaminate a civilized conflict. After the transmission ended, the bridge remained quiet for several moments. Finally, Sora spoke. Sir, are we really going to show them how humans fight wars? Taiwan nodded slowly. They think they understand warfare because they have turned it into a game with rules and time limits. They have no idea what war actually means. Should we warn them? Dr. Yunbi asked. We will follow their rules, Taiwan replied. We will conduct a limited engagement with their permission, but we will show them what it means when humans decide to end a conflict. The indomitable will began moving toward the battle zone, its massive bulk dwarfing every other ship in the system. In the cargo bays, 3,000 Marines checked their equipment and prepared for the kind of warfare the galaxy had never seen. The space around Kepler 442 suddenly filled with impossible readings as the human battleship Indomitable Will dropped out of hyperspace. Every sensor array in both alien fleets screamed warnings that made no sense. The vessel appearing before them was larger than any ship they had ever seen, stretching 15 kilometers from front to back like a floating metal mountain. Marshal Cretan stared at his tactical display in complete confusion. This cannot be correct, he muttered to his bridge crew. No ship can be that large. Check the sensors again. His navigation officer, a young Nexari named Veltar, ran the scans 3 more times. Sir, the readings are accurate. The human vessel is 15.2 kilometers long, 3.8 kilometers wide, and appears to mass more than our entire fleet combined. Admiral Vexhai was having similar problems on his command ship. His chief scientist, Dr. Morketh, kept shaking his head as he reviewed the sensor data. This defies everything we know about ship construction. A vessel that size should collapse under its own gravity. The structural stress alone should tear it apart. Perhaps humans are better engineers than we assumed, Vexhai replied, though he sounded doubtful. Aboard the Indomitable Will, Captain, Sora watched the alien fleets through the main view screen. Both groups of ships had stopped their ritual combat and were now staring at the human battleship like small children seeing their first starship. They seem surprised, she observed to Admiral Taiwan. They should be, Taiwan replied. They have never seen a ship designed for actual warfare instead of ceremonial combat. Lieutenant Wee Jin received an incoming transmission. Sir, we are being contacted by Marshal Cretan of the Nexari fleet. He requests permission to transmit the rules of honorable engagement. Put him through, Taiwan ordered. The main screen showed Marshal Cretan in his pristine white uniform, every piece of equipment polished to perfection. Behind him, the Nexari bridge looked more like a luxury hotel than a military command center. Greetings, humans, Cretan began formally. I am Marshal Cretan, commanding the Nexari Expeditionary Force. Before you can participate in this conflict, you must receive proper instruction in civilized warfare. Taiwan nodded politely. We are ready to listen, Marshal. Excellent. First, you must understand that warfare is an art form, not mere violence. We fight to demonstrate skill and honor, not to cause unnecessary destruction. The current conflict permits exactly 47 casualties per side, with strict guidelines about which ship systems may be targeted. Captain Sora tried to keep her expression neutral, but she could not hide her amazement. 47 casualties for an entire war? Indeed, Crichton replied proudly. The Nexari and Zephyrian peoples have refined warfare to eliminate waste and brutality. We fight from dawn until midday, then observe the reflection period where both sides contemplate the futility of violence. Combat resumes in the evening for exactly 3 hours. Commander Inho, listening from the weapons station, looked around, the bridge in disbelief. They have scheduled their war like a sporting event, he whispered to his assistant. Furthermore, Crichton continued, all weapons must be calibrated to cause minimal damage. We target only non-essential systems. If a ship loses its weapons, it withdraws from combat rather than being destroyed. The goal is to demonstrate superior tactics, not to eliminate the enemy. Dr. Yunbi stepped forward, her tablet filled with human military history. Marshal Crichton, may I ask how your species learned these rules of warfare? They were developed by the Galactic Confederation over 3 centuries ago, Crichton explained. Before these rules, warfare was chaotic and wasteful. Sometimes entire ships were destroyed. Hundreds of people died in single battles. It was barbaric. I see, Dr. Yunbi replied carefully. And what happens if one side refuses to follow these rules? Crichton looked confused by the question. Why would anyone refuse? These rules ensure that conflicts are resolved efficiently with minimal loss of life and resources. What other way could there be? Admiral Taiwan exchanged glances with his officers. Marshal, would you like to hear about human warfare traditions? Of course. We are always interested in learning about primitive military customs. Perhaps we can help you understand more advanced methods. Dr. Unbi activated her tablet and began reading. In the year 1942, humans fought a battle called Stalingrad. It lasted for 5 months. Over 1 million soldiers died on both sides. The city was completely destroyed. The alien bridge fell silent. Several Nexari officers looked physically ill. That is impossible, Crichton stammered. No species would accept such losses over a single location. In 1944, Dr. Yunbi continued, humans conducted an operation called D-Day. We landed 150,000 soldiers on an enemy beach in a single day. We knew tens of thousands would die, but we did it anyway because we needed to win the war. Marshal Crichton's face had turned pale. Surely these are fictional stories. No intelligent species would engage in such wasteful violence. These are historical facts, Taiwan replied. Human history contains over 15,000 major wars. We have fought with spears, swords, guns, bombs, and nuclear weapons. We have destroyed entire cities to achieve victory. But why? Crichton asked, genuinely horrified. Why would you choose destruction over negotiation? Why would you accept such terrible losses? Captain Sora leaned forward. Because sometimes, Marshal, the choice is not between victory and negotiation. Sometimes the choice is between victory and extinction. Admiral Vexhai joined the conversation from his ship. Surely you exaggerate. No conflict requires such extreme measures. Commander Inho pulled up data files on his console. Admiral Vexhai, in human history we have faced enemies who wanted to completely eliminate our species. We have fought wars where surrender meant slavery or death for every man, woman, and child in our civilization. In such situations, rules become meaningless. That is barbaric, Vexhai replied. Civilized species do not threaten each other with extinction. No, Taiwan agreed. Civilized species negotiate and compromise, but not all species are civilized. Not all enemies can be reasoned with. That is why humans learn to fight wars to win them, not to look good while losing them. Dr. Yunbi brought up more historical records. We have fought wars that lasted 30 years, conflicts that killed half the population of entire continents, and battles where soldiers fought hand-to-hand in mud and blood until one side could no longer continue. The alien commanders stared at the human data in shock. Their own military history contained nothing like these savage conflicts. The worst war in Confederation history had resulted in 300 casualties and the destruction of 12 ships. How do you live with such violence? Cretan asked quietly. We live with it because we learned from it, Taiwan replied. Every brutal war taught us better ways to fight the next one. Every defeat showed us new tactics. Every victory proved that survival requires more than good intentions. But surely, Vexhai protested, your species has evolved beyond such primitive methods. Taiwan smiled grimly. Marshal, we hope we never need to use those methods again. But we remember them, and when peaceful solutions fail, we still know how to fight wars the way they were meant to be fought. Lieutenant Wee Jin reported another incoming transmission. Sir, we are receiving updated tactical data from both fleets. They appear to be studying our weapon systems. What do the scans show? Sora asked. They are having trouble categorizing our armaments. Our kinetic weapons do not match any known technology. Our electronic warfare systems are completely foreign to them. They keep asking their computers what a marine is. Cretan's voice came through the speakers again. Humans, we have completed our review of your vessel. We cannot identify most of your weapon systems. What kind of energy weapons do you carry? We prefer kinetic weapons, Inho replied. Metal projectiles accelerated to very high speeds. Metal projectiles? Vexhai sounded confused. That is extremely primitive. Energy weapons are far more efficient and precise. Efficient for what? Taiwan asked. Your energy weapons are designed to disable enemy systems without destroying them. Our weapons are designed to destroy anything we aim them at. But that violates the rules of honorable engagement, Cretan protested. Marshal, Taiwan said patiently, we never agreed to follow your rules. We agreed to help resolve this conflict. Human peacekeeping methods are quite different from your ceremonial warfare. What do you mean by peacekeeping methods? Vexhai asked suspiciously. We will demonstrate, Taiwan replied. With your permission, we would like to show you how humans end conflicts quickly and permanently. Both alien commanders consulted with their superiors via subspace communication. After several minutes, Cretan returned to the screen. Very well, humans. You may conduct a limited demonstration, but you must follow basic safety protocols. No unnecessary casualties. No destruction of valuable resources. Understood, Taiwan replied. We will resolve this conflict with minimal human casualties. The communication ended, and the bridge of the indomitable will fell quiet. Finally, Sora spoke up. Sir, I think they misunderstood what you meant by minimal human casualties. They did, Taiwan agreed. They think we are concerned about protecting their people. They have no idea that we fight to win, Admiral Taiwan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Will and studied the two alien fleets positioned exactly 3,000 kilometers apart. Both groups had resumed their morning combat ritual, firing careful shots at predetermined targets, while following their ancient rules. The Zephyrian ship Crystal Wing had just disabled the communications array on the Nexari vessel Swift Current, and both crews were politely congratulating each other on the precision of the attack. "Commander Inho," Taiwan said quietly, "are our weapon systems ready?" "All systems are online, sir," Inho replied from his weapon station. "Kinetic batteries are loaded and targeted. Electronic warfare packages are prepared. Marine boarding. Teams are standing by." Captain Sora checked her tactical display. "Sir, both alien fleets are currently in Formation 7 of their combat manual. They will maintain this pattern for exactly 47 minutes before rotating to Formation 8. "Perfect," Taiwan said. "Lieutenant Weijin, open a channel to both fleet commanders." The main screen split to show Marshal Crichton and Admiral Vexhai, both looking expectant. Behind them, their bridge crews continued the slow, ceremonial dance of civilized warfare. "Marshal Crichton, Admiral Vexhai," Taiwan began formally, "we are prepared to begin our demonstration of human peacekeeping methods. For your safety, we recommend that all non-essential personnel move to secure areas of your ships." Crichton looked confused. "Non-essential personnel? But this is merely a demonstration. Surely there is no danger." "There is always danger in warfare," Taiwan replied. "Even demonstrations can have unexpected results." Vexhai waved dismissively. "We have observed hundreds of combat demonstrations. Our ships are perfectly safe at this range." "Very well," Taiwan said. "We will begin now." The communication ended, and Taiwan turned to his weapons officer. "Commander Inho, implement Peacekeeping Protocol Alpha." "Peacekeeping Protocol Alpha, aye, sir," Inho responded, his fingers dancing across his control panel. What happened next shattered every assumption about space warfare that the galaxy had, developed over 3 centuries. The Indomitable Will launched not the careful, precise energy beams that characterized civilized combat, but a massive salvo of kinetic penetrators. Thousands of tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, erupted from the human battleship and streaked toward both alien fleets at significant fractions of light speed. On the Nexari flagship, sensor operator Veltar stared at his displays in horror. "Sir, the humans have launched some kind of projectile weapons, thousands of them. They are moving at... This cannot be correct." Marshal Crichton looked at the readings and felt his blood turn cold. "Those projectiles are traveling at 12% of light speed. That is impossible. No civilization would waste that much energy on crude kinetic weapons." The tungsten rods struck the Zephyrian fleet first. Unlike the gentle, controlled impacts of energy weapons designed to disable specific systems, these projectiles punched completely through alien ships like bullets through paper. The elegant Zephyrian vessel Star Dancer simply ceased to exist as 3 tungsten rods passed through its hull from bow to stern. Admiral Vexhai watched in stunned silence as 7 of his ships were destroyed in the first 3 seconds of human fire. "This is not possible," he whispered. "No species fights like this." But the kinetic barrage was only the beginning of the human demonstration. Lieutenant Weijin activated the Indomitable Will's electronic warfare systems, flooding the battlefield with signals that the aliens had never experienced. Every communication channel between alien ships suddenly filled with static. Navigation systems began reporting impossible coordinates. Weapon-targeting computers started attacking their own ships. The precise formations that had defined galactic warfare for centuries collapsed into chaos as ships lost contact with their commanders and their own systems turned against them. "What is happening?" Cretan demanded of his technical officers. "Why can we not communicate with our fleet?" His chief engineer, a veteran Nexari named Tok'Ron, stared at his console in bewilderment. "Sir, the humans appear to be jamming every frequency we use. But more than that, they are sending false signals that make our computers think they are receiving orders from our own command staff." On his tactical display, Cretan watched his carefully organized fleet scatter in all directions as ships tried to follow contradictory orders that seemed to come from his own flagship. Dr. Yunbi, monitoring the demonstration from the human bridge, explained to the alien commanders over an open channel. "What you are experiencing is called electronic warfare. Human military doctrine does not merely target enemy ships. We target enemy communications, navigation, morale, and decision-making capability." "This is barbaric," Vexhai protested, even as his own fleet fell into disarray. "Civilized warfare requires clear communication between commanders. How can we conduct an honorable battle if we cannot coordinate our forces?" "That is the point," Captain Sora replied. "We are not trying to conduct an honorable battle. We are trying to win." The alien fleets, designed for elegant dueling between individual ships, found themselves completely helpless against coordinated human tactics. Their energy shields, optimized for deflecting precise laser bursts, offered no protection against kinetic impactors traveling at relativistic speeds. Their communication systems, built for clear battlefield coordination, crumbled under the assault of human cyber warfare. Commander Inho demonstrated human tactical flexibility by adapting his attack in real time. When several Nexari ships attempted to retreat to what their manual designated as a neutral zone, the humans simply ignored the arbitrary boundary and continued their pursuit. "You cannot attack ships in the neutral zone," Cretan protested over the few communication channels that remained functional. "The rules of honorable engagement clearly state that vessels in designated safe areas are not legitimate targets." "Never agreed to your rules," Taiwan replied calmly. "Human peacekeeping recognizes no neutral zones. If you are participating in the conflict, you are a legitimate target regardless of your location." The concept was so foreign to galactic military thinking that several alien commanders simply shut down their ships rather than try to comprehend warfare without boundaries. But the most shocking development came when Captain Sora coordinated the deployment of human marines. Armored soldiers launched from the Indomitable Will in small craft that moved too fast for alien sensors to track effectively. These marines boarded damaged alien vessels not to rescue crews or provide medical assistance, but to capture enemy ships and personnel. Colonel Jayan led the first boarding action against the Zephyrian cruiser Elegant Dawn. Her marines moved through the alien ship with practiced efficiency, using weapons and tactics that the Zephyrians had never encountered. Within minutes, they had secured the bridge and taken the entire crew prisoner. The concept of boarding actions was completely outside alien experience. In 3 centuries of civilized warfare, no species had ever attempted to capture enemy vessels through direct assault. The idea of soldiers trained specifically for close-quarters combat aboard hostile ships was as foreign to them as underwater warfare. "What are those humans doing to our ships?" Admiral Vexhai demanded. "They appear to be capturing them," Dr. Yunbi explained. In human military doctrine, enemy assets can be more valuable intact than destroyed. Your ships and crews now belong to the human fleet. That is theft, Cretan protested. That is victory, Taiwan corrected. Within 6 hours, both alien fleets had surrendered unconditionally. The mining dispute that was scheduled to last 3 months, according to Confederation, protocol had been resolved in less than a standard day. 43 alien ships had been destroyed, 18 captured, and the remainder were fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. The aftermath was eerily quiet. No scheduled reflection period, no formal declarations of tactical appreciation, no polite exchanges between commanders about the elegance of specific maneuvers. Just silence and the debris of ships that had been built for ceremonial combat, not actual war. Marshal Cretan, broadcasting from an escape pod after his flagship was captured, finally managed to contact Confederation High Command. This is Marshal Crichton reporting emergency status. The humans have... Report, Marshal, came the reply. They have ended the war, sir. In 6 hours, using methods that violate every principle of civilized warfare. What kind of weapons did they deploy? Cretan looked at the expanding debris field that had once been 2 proud fleets. Determination, sir. They deployed determination. News of the human intervention at Kepler 442 spread through the Galactic Confederation faster than the speed of light. In the capital city of New Harmony on the planet Centralis, emergency meetings were being held in every government building. Species that had not spoken to each other in decades suddenly found themselves in urgent communication, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Ambassador Kyung-ho stood before the Confederation High Council, surrounded by representatives from 47 different species. The massive chamber, designed to showcase the peaceful cooperation of galactic civilization, now buzzed with fearful whispers and confused questions. The human demonstration lasted exactly 6 hours and 14 minutes, Kyung-ho reported to the assembled delegates. Both participating fleets surrendered unconditionally. The mining dispute has been resolved with the resources being distributed according to population needs rather than military strength. Chancellor Brixtall of the Confederation Council, a tall crystalline being whose species had not fought a war in over 4 centuries, struggled to understand the implications. Ambassador Kyung-ho, you are saying that your species resolved a standard territorial dispute in less than 1 day, without following any established protocols? That is correct, Chancellor, Kyung-ho replied. Human military doctrine focuses on achieving objectives quickly and permanently rather than demonstrating tactical skill over extended periods. The hegemony representative, General Kexmore, stood from his position among the assembled delegates. His species, the Vorthok, controlled the largest fleet in the Confederation and had always been confident in their military superiority. This cannot be accepted, he declared. The humans have violated every principle of civilized warfare. They must be stopped before they contaminate our entire military tradition. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber, but they were mixed with uncertainty. The footage from Kepler 442 had shown weapons and tactics that no species in the Confederation understood or could counter. Dr. Morketh, the Zephyrian scientist who had survived the human demonstration, spoke from his medical recovery pod. General Kexmore, with respect, you did not witness what we saw. The humans do not fight individual battles. They wage campaigns designed to eliminate their opponent's ability to continue fighting. Explain, demanded Chancellor Brixtall. They targeted our communications first, Dr. Morketh continued, his voice still shaky from the experience. Not to disable our weapons, but to isolate our commanders from their fleets. Then they attacked our logistics ships, our repair facilities, our supply convoys. They were not trying to defeat us in honorable combat. They were trying to make it impossible for us to function as a military force. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun of the 2nd Human Expeditionary Force had arrived at Centralis 3 days after the Kepler 442 incident. His massive battle group, consisting of 12 human warships, now orbited the capital world like a reminder of humanity's new presence in galactic affairs. Admiral Dong Hyun, Chancellor Brixtal addressed the human commander via subspace communication. The Confederation requires clarification about your species' military intentions. Dong Hyun appeared on the main screen, his weathered face serious but not hostile. Chancellor, humanity seeks only peaceful coexistence with all Confederation species. However, we will not allow conflicts to continue indefinitely when they can be resolved quickly. But your methods, protested General Kexmore. They violate every standard of civilized behavior. You destroyed ships instead of disabling them. You captured enemy personnel instead of allowing honorable retreat. You ignored designated neutral zones. General, Dong Hyun replied patiently, human history has taught us that there are no neutral zones in war. There is only victory and defeat. Everything else is politics. The chamber fell silent as delegates struggled to process this concept. In 3 centuries of Confederation warfare, the idea that conflicts should end in total victory rather than negotiated settlements was completely foreign. Ambassador Kyung-ho stepped forward. If I may, Chancellor, I believe the Confederation faces a choice. You can continue your traditional approach to warfare, which has kept conflicts limited but unresolved. Or you can learn from human methods, which end conflicts permanently, but at higher short-term costs. General Kexmore's mandibles clicked in anger. The Vorthak Empire challenges humanity to prove their methods against a real military force. We will assemble a fleet of 10,000 vessels and demonstrate that superior numbers can overcome any tactical advantage. Colonel Jia Yon, who had led the marine boarding actions at Kepler 442, spoke from her position aboard Admiral Dong Hyun's flagship. General, may I ask how many wars the Vorthak have won using numerical superiority? We have participated in 43 conflicts over the past century. Kexmore replied proudly. We have achieved favorable negotiated settlements in 31 of them. Negotiated settlements, Jayon repeated. So you have never actually defeated an enemy completely? Complete defeat is unnecessary when proper negotiation can achieve political objectives, Kexmore explained. And how many of those conflicts remained permanently resolved after your negotiations? The question hung in the air for several uncomfortable moments. Finally, General Kexmore admitted, most territorial disputes require periodic renegotiation, as circumstances change. I see, Jayon replied. So you fight the same wars repeatedly, with the same enemies, over the same issues, because you never actually resolve the underlying conflicts. Dr. Unbi, monitoring the conversation from the Human Cultural Analysis Center on Earth, transmitted additional data to the Confederation Council. Honorable delegates, human military history shows a clear pattern. Conflicts that end in negotiated settlements have a 73% chance of recurring within 20 years. Conflicts that end in total victory have a 12% recurrence rate. Chancellor Brixtel studied the data with growing concern. Are you suggesting that our entire approach to conflict resolution is fundamentally flawed? We are suggesting, Ambassador Kyung-ho replied carefully, that there may be more effective methods than the current system. General Kexmore stood, again his entire body radiating aggression. The Vorthak Empire will demonstrate the superiority of traditional Confederation military doctrine. We hereby formally challenge humanity to a full-scale engagement under standard warfare protocols. Admiral Dong Hyun smiled grimly. General, we accept your challenge. However, we must clarify that human forces do not fight under external protocols. We fight to win. What does that mean? Demanded Kexmore. It means, Colonel Jayon explained, that when we engage your fleet, we will not stop fighting until you surrender unconditionally or until you no longer have the ability to continue fighting. The concept was so alien to Confederation thinking that several delegates required translation assistance to understand what the humans were proposing. 3 weeks later, the Vorthak assembled the largest military force in galactic history. 10,000 ships from across their empire converged on the Proxima sector, confident that sheer numbers would overwhelm any tactical advantage the humans might possess. Admiral Dong Hyun arrived with 12 human battleships. The engagement that followed became known throughout the galaxy as the Hour of Enlightenment, though it actually lasted only 37 minutes. The humans began by implementing what they called logistics warfare. Instead of attacking the Vorthak battle fleet directly, they targeted fuel ships, ammunition convoys, repair vessels, and command centers. Within minutes, the massive alien fleet found itself unable to coordinate movements, resupply weapons, or repair damage. Colonel Jayon led simultaneous marine assaults on 17 Vorthak command ships, not to destroy them, but to capture their admirals alive. The concept of taking enemy commanders prisoner during active combat was so foreign that most Vorthak crews simply surrendered when Marines appeared on their bridges. Commander In-Ho demonstrated the devastating effectiveness of human combined arms tactics, coordinating kinetic weapons, electronic warfare, and fighter squadrons in ways that the aliens had never imagined possible. Instead of the elegant ship-to-ship dueling that characterized Confederation warfare, the humans fought as a unified force where every weapon system supported every other system. The psychological impact was even more destructive than the physical damage. Vorthak crews, trained for ceremonial combat with predetermined outcomes, found themselves facing an enemy that seemed determined to destroy them completely. Panic spread through their ranks faster than human weapons fire. When the surviving Vorthak vessels finally surrendered, General Kexmore transmitted a message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. We yield. We do not understand this kind of warfare, and we cannot defend against it. The aftermath sent shockwaves through every military organization in the Confederation. Species that had relied on numerical superiority and traditional tactics suddenly found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about warfare. Ambassador Kyung-ho addressed the emergency session of the Confederation Council with a simple proposal. Humanity offers to establish a military academy where any species can study human tactical doctrine. We can teach you methods that end conflicts permanently. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Sector, the Terran Military Academy on the moon of Centralis Prime had become the most important institution in the galaxy. Representatives from 47 different species walked through its corridors, studying warfare methods that their civilizations had never imagined. Admiral Tae-Wan stood in the main lecture hall, addressing a mixed class of alien officers who listened with the desperate attention of students learning a completely new language. Behind him, holographic displays showed human tactical formations that bore no resemblance to the elegant patterns that had defined galactic warfare for centuries. The key principle, Taewon explained to his audience, is that war is not about following rules or demonstrating skill. War is about achieving your objectives as quickly and completely as possible. A young Zephyrian officer raised her crystalline hand. Admiral, this approach seems to ignore the value of honor in combat. How do humans maintain their dignity while using such brutal methods? Taewon considered the question carefully. Lieutenant Zaralin, dignity comes from protecting your people and your civilization. There is no honor in losing a war because you were too polite to fight effectively. In the back of the classroom, Marshal Cretan of the Nexari fleet took careful notes. The same commander who had tried to teach humans about civilized warfare now studied human doctrine like a religious text. His own fleet had been rebuilt using human design principles, and his officers trained in human tactics. Admiral, Cretan spoke up, my species has begun reviewing our ancient military history before we adopted Confederation protocols. We discovered that our ancestors fought wars very similar to human methods, brutal, decisive conflicts that ended in total victory or total defeat. What happened to those methods? Asked Captain Sora, who now served as the Academy's Director of Tactical Studies. We believed we had evolved beyond such primitive approaches, Cretan replied sadly. We thought that civilized species should fight civilized wars. We forgot that sometimes civilization must be defended by uncivilized means. Dr. Yunbi entered the classroom carrying a data tablet filled with historical analysis. Class, I have interesting news from our research department. We have been studying the military history of all Confederation species, looking for patterns in their ancient warfare. The assembled alien officers leaned forward with interest. Many of their species had been examining their own forgotten military traditions since humanity's arrival. Every single species in the Confederation once fought wars using methods similar to human doctrine, Dr. Yunbi announced. Total war, decisive battles, and permanent resolution of conflicts. The ritualized combat system was a recent development, historically speaking. Admiral Vex High, who had also survived the demonstration at Kepler 442, stood from his seat. Dr. Yunbi, are you saying that we abandoned effective warfare in favor of ceremonial combat? That appears to be exactly what happened, she replied. Your species achieved such technological and social advancement that you forgot why those military traditions existed in the first place. The implications were staggering. 50 species had spent 3 centuries fighting ineffective wars because they had convinced themselves that brutality was beneath them, only to discover that sometimes brutality was necessary for survival. Colonel Jayon addressed the class from her position at the front of the room. Students, I want you to understand something important. Human military doctrine is not superior because humans are naturally violent. It is superior because humans never forgot that the purpose of war is to end it. A Vorthak general named Rexthon, one of the few survivors from the battle against Admiral Dong-hyun, raised his hand. Colonel, my species prided itself on having the largest fleet in the galaxy. We believed that numbers guaranteed victory. How were we so wrong? Because you confused size with strength, Jayon replied. A large fleet that cannot coordinate its actions effectively is weaker than a small fleet that fights as a unified force. Ambassador Kyung-ho entered the classroom and approached the lectern. His diplomatic career had been transformed by humanity's military success, and he now served as the liaison between human forces and the restructured Confederation government. Class, he announced, I have received urgent communications from the Outer Rim territories. Long-range sensors have detected an approaching fleet of unknown origin. The vessels do not match any known Confederation design, and they have not responded to diplomatic contact attempts. The classroom fell silent. This was the scenario that everyone had been dreading since humanity's arrival. Contact with a truly hostile alien species that had not been domesticated by centuries of ritualized warfare. Admiral Tae-wan studied the tactical data that Kyung-ho transmitted to the main display. Fleet composition appears to be approximately 8,000 vessels of varying sizes. Their formation patterns suggest aggressive intent. They are moving directly toward Confederation space without regard for established boundaries. How long until they reach inhabited systems? Asked Sora. 17 days at current speed. Kyung-ho replied. General Rexthon looked at the display with growing alarm. 8,000 ships. Even with our new training, the Confederation fleet cannot match such numbers. Numbers do not determine the outcome of wars, Tae-wan reminded him. Tactics, coordination, and the will to win determine outcomes. Admiral Dong-hyun appeared on the main screen via subspace communication from his flagship orbiting Earth. Admiral Tae-wan, I am preparing to depart with the 3rd Human Battle Group. 50 ships, all equipped with the latest weapon systems. 50 ships against 8,000, whispered a Nexari cadet. 50 human ships, corrected Colonel Jayan, supported by every Confederation vessel that has completed tactical retraining. We are not going to fight this enemy using their rules or our old rules. We are going to fight using human rules. Over the following week, the largest fleet in galactic history assembled in the neutral zone between Confederation space and the approaching unknown vessels. 300 human ships formed the core of the force, supported by over 2,000 alien vessels that had been retrofitted with human weapons and trained in human tactics. Admiral Tae-wan took command of the combined fleet from his flagship, the newly constructed Battleship Eternal Victory. For the first time in galactic history, ships from 50 different species operated under unified command, using coordinated battle plans designed around human strategic principles. The enemy fleet, which called itself the Devourers, had indeed evolved along similar lines to ancient humanity. They practiced total warfare, showed no mercy to defeated enemies, and sought to completely eliminate any species they encountered. They had conquered 17 civilizations using exactly the kind of brutal tactics that the Confederation had, abandoned centuries ago. When the fleets met in the void between stars, the Devourers expected to face the same kind of ritualized resistance that had made their previous conquests so easy. Instead, they encountered something that their own military doctrine had not prepared them for, an enemy that fought exactly like they did, but with better weapons and superior coordination. The battle lasted 8 hours and became known as the Last War because it demonstrated that the galaxy now possessed the military capability to defend itself against any threat. Admiral Tae-wan, standing on his bridge as the last Devourer ship surrendered, opened a communication channel to the entire combined fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Tae-wan. Today we have proven that the galaxy can defend itself when its people are willing to fight for their survival. Captain Sora, commanding a squadron of mixed human and alien vessels, replied for the entire fleet. Sir, request permission to transmit a message to the defeated enemy. Granted. Sora's voice carried across space to the surviving Devourer vessels. To the commanders of the Devourer fleet, You believed you understood war because you learned to kill efficiently. But you made one critical mistake. You forgot that the purpose of war is not to destroy your enemies. The purpose of war is to make them surrender. The surrender was unconditional and permanent. The Devourer civilization, faced with an enemy that could match their brutality while surpassing their tactical skill, agreed to integrate into the Confederation under human military supervision. Dr. Yunbi, analyzing the battle results from the Terran Military Academy, published her final report on the transformation of galactic warfare. The galaxy has learned that peace is not maintained by avoiding conflict, she wrote. Peace is maintained by being prepared to win conflicts when they cannot be avoided. The Confederation continued to exist, but it was no longer a collection of species that fought ceremonial wars over minor disputes. It had become a unified defense alliance capable of protecting civilization itself against any threat that might emerge from the darkness between stars. Admiral Tai Wan retired from active duty but continued teaching at the academy, where students from across the galaxy learned the most important lesson in human military history. Wars are fought not to demonstrate superior tactics or technological advancement, but to achieve peace through strength. The age of ritualized combat was over. The age of victory had begun.